There has probably never been a more impactful and iconic television program than the original Star Trek series that ran from September 1966 to June 1969. The groundbreaking show was the creation of writer and producer Gene Roddenberry, a man truly ahead of his time, and he created a franchise that will live forever. The iconic characters have become legendary, such as Dr. Leonard Bones McCoy, played by DeForest Kelley, Captain James T. Kirk, played by William Shatner, Mr. Spock, played by Leonard Nimoy, Lieutenant Uhura, played by Nichelle Nichols, Mr. Sulu, played by George Takei, and of course Mr. Scott, the Chief Engineer, played by James Doohan. Among others were Roddenberry's wife, actress Majel Barrett, who played various roles in the Star Trek franchise, including Nurse Chapel in the original series, Lwaxana Troi in The Next Generation, and the voice of the computer interfaces. The longevity of the original series and the many spin-offs and feature films continue to be popular, all from the fertile mind of a true visionary and genius. But how relevant is Star Trek in today's society? What made Star Trek so unique? Why did its fan base and popularity dramatically increase over the decades after the show ended? How did it continue to survive and create future spin-offs? What modern-day technical advances used today were predicted in the series many years ago? Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, former history professor, Army and Marine Corps veteran, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History. Gene Roddenberry was a World War II B-17 pilot who flew 89 missions and was extremely creative and had a disciplined, tactical, and detail-oriented mind. His greatest creation, Star Trek, was groundbreaking in many ways. It highlighted the existing problems and controversies of racism, bigotry, science, military, and political conflict and clashes of culture. The original Star Trek series launched the greatest revolution in the history of television after the arrival of color television. The stories were solid, poignant, and connected to the problems facing people all over the world every day, often to a very uncomfortable degree. Roddenberry once said, "The strength of a civilization is not measured by its ability to fight wars, but rather by its ability to prevent them." All of these themes were present and resonated, and were often problematic in the American and even global cultures as the series ran. But what stands out more than anything else are the elucidations and predictions Roddenberry made. All of the original episodes delved deeply into scientific issues, chemistry, diplomacy, militarism, totalitarianism, passion, and technology. Roddenberry saw the future, and he used his creativity to implement devices that he knew would have a great public interest and were going to be mainstream at some time in the future. Perhaps the most famous of all of these devices was the communicator, the handheld communication device resembling a cellular flip phone long before personal phones were even developed. Handheld radios had existed since World War II, but the small portable device was intriguing to viewers. Other futuristic devices included phasers and photon torpedoes, weapons systems that were theoretically feasible even before Star Trek, but not technically viable at the time. Star Trek brought these visions into the public imagination. Laser technology was in its embryonic stage due to the works of Charles H. Towns at Columbia University, and also Alexander Mikhailovich Prokhorov and Nikolai Gennadievich Basov of the P.N. Lebedev Physical Institute in Moscow. Towns also had discussions with a graduate student at Columbia University, Gordon Gould, who quickly developed his own laser ideas. Towns and Shavlov published their ideas for an optical maser in a paper in the December 15, 1958 issue of Physical Review. Meanwhile, Gould coined the word laser and wrote a patent application. They independently described the theory of maser operations due to the use of microwave. For their work, Towns, Prokhorov, and Basov shared the 1964 Nobel Prize for Physics. Roddenberry took that knowledge many steps further in his creative application of that technology. Eventually, Gould received a series of 4 patents starting in 1977 that earned him millions of dollars in royalties. But Star Trek fans were already well aware of lasers. Gould was a big fan of the original series. We were all aware of the term warp speed due to Star Trek, or traveling at several times the speed of light, which is not feasible today, as of yet, but theoretically possible, which even Albert Einstein laid out in his research as early as 1916, along with the possibility of time travel. Roddenberry envisioned space travel long before the Apollo missions to the moon. He also saw the future of space stations long before Skylab and Mir were built and launched, as well as the International Space Station. He believed in the future and said, "The human race is a remarkable creature, one with great potential, and I hope that Star Trek has helped to show us what we can be if we believe in ourselves and our abilities." Roddenberry also brought the term wormhole into common usage, which may not only connect two different sections of the universe, but they may even connect two other universes or parallel universes. Similarly, some scientists believe that moving one mouth of a wormhole in a precise way could enable time travel and can basically teleport compressed objects at super speeds from one end to another. According to Einstein's special theory of relativity, time's flow depends upon how fast you're moving. The quicker you travel, the slower seconds pass. In addition, according to Einstein's general theory of relativity, gravity also affects clocks. The more forceful the gravity nearby, the slower time goes. Roddenberry incorporated much of this into his projects. Near massive bodies near the surface of neutron stars, or even at the surface of the Earth, although it's a tiny effect, time runs slower than it does far away, said Dave Goldberg, a cosmologist at Drexel University. Scientific American stated, for instance, most time travel models require negative mass, and hence negative energy because, as Albert Einstein revealed when he discovered E equals mc2, mass and energy are one and the same. In theory, at least, just as an electric charge can be positive or negative, so can mass, though no one's ever found an example of negative mass. Why does time travel depend on such exotic matter? In many cases, it is needed to hold open a wormhole, a tunnel in space-time predicted by general relativity that connects one point in the cosmos to another. So it would appear that it is theoretically possible for humans to travel through time once the quantum physics are ironed out, so we shall see what the future holds. But so far, Roddenberry's predictions have been pretty solid. The most visible futuristic tool was the transporter, which Roddenberry envisioned as being possible in the future despite the very limited technology of the day, which is still far out of reach of modern science today. Our poor understanding of quantum mechanics to that degree makes it impossible to know the exact position of a particle and the speed at which it is traveling, let alone reassembly. The automatic doors seen in the original series were very futuristic, as two people pulled ropes on either side of the doors to have them open, as there was not yet that technology available, but that was developed in the 1970s and employed globally in the early 1980s as motion sensor devices. But perhaps the greatest underlying message of all in Star Trek were the variations and the messaging of mutual understanding, learning about and accepting other people's or alien life forms and cultures, reducing misunderstanding, and eradicating prejudice and hate. But Roddenberry is a hero for many reasons, not the least of which is that he pushed certain uncomfortable subjects to the wall. Many of the original episodes were banned in certain countries due to the social mores and prejudices of the day. Gene Barry's science fiction creation hit the world like a Klingon disruptor. For example, the episode Miri was banned in the UK because it dealt most unpleasantly with the already unpleasant subjects of madness, torture, sadism, and disease. This was likely considered even more offensive than other Star Trek episodes that featured similar storylines because the cast was primarily children, and in the UK, Star Trek was considered to be a children's television program. Another banned episode was Plato's Stepchildren, which was banned by the BBC for violent content. But perhaps the real reason it was banned in the UK was because it raised eyebrows in the USA for NBC executives, as it was the first interracial kiss on television, and many southern stations refused to air it. The Empath episode was also banned in the UK because it depicted torture, which is a real factor but considered too real. While breaking barriers, the episode Whom Gods Destroy was also banned in the UK due to the risque performance by Marta, the Orion slave girl. The episode Patterns of Force was banned in Germany and Austria due to the Third Reich theme and the German uniforms and swastikas that abounded, as well as the very clear connection between the episode's racial theme and the Nazis' use of eugenics. There was a split at the BBC between the convenience of time-saving and a logical duty, such as with the episode Arena, which, as the BBC explained to the Star Trek Action Group newsletter, was edited because it is not BBC practice to show the exact process by which gunpowder is made to prevent the children emulating their heroes. In June 1976, British Star Trek fans launched a letter campaign petitioning the BBC to show the banned episodes. The Star Trek Action Group, which is a fan newsletter, reprinted the BBC's response, in which they explained to the group that, after very careful consideration, a top-level decision was made not to screen the episodes entitled Empath, Whom Gods Destroy, Plato's Stepchildren, and Miri, because they all dealt with most unpleasantly with the already unpleasant subjects of madness, torture, sadism, and disease. Not to give up the ghost there, the fans petitioned and continued, and in August 1979, the BBC again expounded its position. We have no plans to show the banned episodes, as we have stated several times before. I'm afraid every big organization comes in for a little ridicule from time to time, but we are a public service broadcasting organization with great responsibilities. And after very careful consideration, we decided not to show a particular program. You may rest assured that it is in the best interest of viewers in this country. Well, credit to both the fans and the BBC's patience. The latter again issued a statement in 1984 responding to the group, stating that, "You will appreciate that account must be taken that out of Star Trek's large and enthusiastic following, many are juveniles, no matter what time of day the series is put into the program schedules. A further look has been taken following the recent correspondence, but I am afraid it has been impossible to revise the opinion not to show these episodes." Well, Gene Roddenberry struck back at a news conference in 1984 when he was asked what he thought of the continuing ban on those 4 episodes. He said, "I disagree with the ban very much. Empath to me is a beautiful story. If someone is to say to me, 'You can't have hurt and pain,' I say nonsense. Suffering and pain are a part of life. They should be handled and handled well. I feel the same way about violence and sex. My objection to violence and sex is on the shows where it goes on for a while as someone says, 'Well, it's going slow now. Why don't you have a fist fight or a shooting?' Then they put it in to raise the ratings. What I hate about violence are shows where grown men strike out and hit each other in the face with their fist, and after hitting themselves for 30 minutes with all of their strength in the face, they grin and say, 'Wow, wasn't that fun?' That's not how life is." Eventually, the BBC showed the banned and edited episodes in 1994, over 20 years after their original broadcast in the U.S., although with some editing with time to reduce content. The year after the termination of the original series, Paramount Television released Star Trek to television stations as a syndication package and followed up with an entire series collection, cashing in on the interest in the science fiction genre. The world has been captivated ever since, and the feature films that followed in the genre were very well received, such as Star Trek The Motion Picture in 1979, Star Trek II The Wrath of Khan in 1982, Star Trek III The Search for Spock in 1984, Star Trek IV The Voyage Home in 1986, Star Trek V The Final Frontier in 1989, and Star Trek VI The Undiscovered Country in 1991, Insurrection in 1998, Nemesis in 2002, Star Trek in 2009, Into the Darkness in 2013, Star Trek Beyond in 2016, and a new Star Trek Section 31 proposed in the near future. The film franchise has earned over $2 billion worldwide, and there was also the animated series from 1973 to 1974. The primetime series Star Trek, The Next Generation from 1987 to 1993, Star Trek Deep Space Nine from 1993 to 1998, Star Trek Voyager from 1995 to 2000, Enterprise from 2001 to 2004, Andromeda from 2002 to 2005, Discovery from 2017 to 2024, Star Treks from 2017 to 2019, Picard from 2020 to 2023, Lower Decks from 2020 to 2024, Prodigy from 2021 to 2024, Strange New Worlds launched in 2022, and the forthcoming Starfleet Academy, so check listings for that one. In essence, Gene Roddenberry was a visionary who looked far ahead of his time, who saw injustice and wanted to bring it out in the open through fiction and pushed the envelope where technology and social issues were concerned with little regard to who it may offend. He would probably still be pushing these messages given the turmoil and violence in the world today. As he said, Star Trek was an attempt to say that humanity will reach maturity and wisdom on the day that it begins not just to tolerate, but take a special delight in differences in ideas and differences in life forms. Gene Roddenberry was a humanist who aspired to correct wrongs, illustrate those wrongs in society, and provided a window into a possible future that would benefit all of humankind and beyond. He was a real inspiration to many, spanning several generations, including me, your humble narrator. Gene Roddenberry died on October 24, 1991 in Santa Monica, California, and his ashes were sent into space aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia in October of 1992 by NASA astronaut James Weatherby. Thank you for watching this episode of Forgotten History. If you liked what you saw, please click like, share, and subscribe. And if you would like to assist with the ever-increasing cost of production, please consider becoming a channel member and joining our Patreon page. Please check out our merchandise store. And thanks for watching.